Hello. Well, prepare yourself. I know a lot about you are about to hang up because I'm about to talk about something that people just don't seem to want to talk about. Uh, I'll be honest with you. I'm here to promote my book series. I've written three books in the series. Let me tell you how it started. When I was 15 years old, I worked at the Uptown Theater in Indianapolis, Indiana. I was 15. I was not out. I had never experienced gay people. I mean, there were a couple of guys at my high school, but they were very obvious, and I was very paranoid about people making a connection, so I never even spoke to them. Uh, anyway, so I was working at this theater, and so there was a big concert at the theater. It was a gospel music concert, and my experience was, either you're Christian or you're gay. It was never I never made a connection between you being both at that time in my life. I was 15 years old. Anyway, so I was working as an usher at this theater, and there was this big group, and I really do not remember the name of the group, but it was a pretty big gospel group. They didn't bring in local acts, but they were here for the big gospel concert, and so I was the usher. So I just wanted to meet these people. I had heard of them, and I wanted to meet them. So I went backstage, and they were getting dressed and getting ready, and I said, "You guys need water or something?" Just the guys getting dressed in the dressing room. And one of the guys, the one who was the lead singer in this group, he looked at me and he said, "Uh, Do we need anything?" Ooh, girl, he want to know, do we need anything? My point is, they were gay as hell. And for some reason, at that time, it never even occurred to me that people who were singing gospel music would be gay. Anyway, this was my first exposure to gay men in the gospel music industry. I was tickled me pink because he wasn't the only one. They were all gay. I mean, and they spoke in gay slang backstage, and came forward and then blessed the people. Well, that left an impression on me because I had never seen a group of gay men before, grown adults. I said all that to say, I went on to my life. I left Indianapolis. I went to Hollywood, and soon after that, I got involved in drugs, and so for the next maybe 20 years, I was very much involved. First, I was involved in bar scene, and then I eventually got hooked up with crystal meth, and so I became a severe meth addict for 17 years. Uh, the first few years, I think 3 4 years, I did pretty much everything: acid and weed and a lot of alcohol. I mean, the bars were my life at that point, in my early 20s, and I ended up on meth, seriously on meth. So I'm not going to tell you that story right now. I did write a book about that also. But I would like to do that at some point. It won't be right now. Okay, so I ended up going to prison 10 times in 10 years. That means that after you go the first time, you're on parole, and then basically, whenever they catch you after that, the charges are generally dropped and you're sent back to prison. And so I went 10 times in 10 years. They tell me I was really into it, right? But to make a long story short, I got delivered while still in prison. And this was a spiritual experience that I've had and haven't had anything to match it since. So I know people do not want to hear anything about God, but that's really is my truth. So I got out, and then I actually joined the church, gay church. Everyone was gay. Pastor was gay. All the assistant pastors gay. Ushers gay. Every gay all day. There's a lot of gay in that church. I'm still an enthusiastic member of that church. But a lot of the conversation with the guys, particularly the guys in the choir involved in music departments, were about gay men in the gospel music industry. And they were, they're not publicly outing people or shaming people or anything like that. But they would talk about the various guys that were, uh, in the gospel music industry who were gay. And so I made the connection about when I first saw them way back then, and now. So anyway, I got inspired. I got inspired to write books about the experience of gay men in the gospel music industry, and realize that not only were they in it, they in many ways dominated the gospel music industry. So my first book was Meth Monster. This was autobiographical about the whole meth thing and my deliverance. But I got out and I got excited about writing after I wrote that book. I mean, before that, I hadn't even read a full book from cover to cover in my entire life until I went to prison. So I was not a book person, but I got inspired. And so this was the first book. And you see it? Love and Gospel Music. With the subtitle, if I put it real close, What's Wrong with Telling the Damn Truth? Okay, this came out in, I don't remember, about 10 years ago. Anyway, this book contains my soul. So everything I ever experienced in gay experience, everything I ever experienced as a child being gay and realized myself in the coming out process and all that, tied into a fictional story of these gay men, gay lovers, guys who fall in love and become successful in the gospel music industry. The one guy, my main character is Dwayne Brown. He starts off in Ohio, which would actually be Indiana. He's basically myself, and he goes through his life. Then he in Los Angeles. He ends up in Los Angeles, and he meets this gospel singer who's a young, beautiful man, and they create this company together. He becomes a producer. So it's a very successful story until it becomes unsuccessful because Dwayne is eventually murdered. The second book is, I have a real hard time with the lighting here because I'm sitting in front of my window. See that one? The Epiphany. So after Dwayne is murdered, Joey is left alive. He's murdered by a psychotic teenage fan of Joey's. Joey is a big gospel artist. They start this TV show, and one of the fans from the TV show is actually a stalker and a psychotic murderer. So he kills Dwayne. And then in the second book, The Epiphany, opens with picks the story up with Joey, who is about to kill himself. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read, I promise you, only 2 pages of the way The Epiphany starts. This story picks up that story. Joey White is now about 60 years old. His lover has been murdered, and he's he's in a very bad place. So he flies to San Francisco to kill himself. This is where the story opens. So I'm going to read a little bit of it. Chapter 1, San Francisco. Joey stood out on the very edge of Pier 14, looking blankly over the choppy yet hypnotically calming water of the San Francisco Bay. In front of him, the lush green landscape of Treasure Island. Above, pulsating veins of humanity moved in a steady flow across the majestic Bay Bridge. He'd always loved San Francisco, thinking it picturesque, romantic, and overrunning with natural, architectural, and human character. Since his very first visit to the city back in 1969, Joey thought the very spot where he was now standing the perfect place to step off the face of the earth. When Dwayne was still alive, the two of them sometimes pondered the idea of a second home here. Maybe even living out their old age here. The Bay Area was so beautiful. They both loved and appreciated the home and successful life they had built together in Los Angeles. But it was a fast-paced, demanding life. Always another project, another award to aim for, another talent to be developed. The idea of a home away from home was very appealing to both men. San Francisco was both close enough and far enough away. Dwayne Brown had been Joey's life partner, business partner, and first and only love for just shy of 30 years. He had 2 years prior been senselessly murdered by a psychotic teenage fan of Joey's. What the people in Joey's life didn't understand, what they couldn't possibly understand, was that his mind could not or would not accept what had happened to his partner. To think that a life as innocent, gentle, spiritual, and loving as Dwayne's could be so suddenly ripped from the pages of existence for no reason that made sense to any sane person, well, he simply couldn't come to terms with it. He wouldn't, not for one more miserable day. It had been 2 years now, 2 long years of dark, debilitating grief. The horrifying scene from the recurring nightmare played in his mind again as he looked out over the bay. He hoped to God that this would be the very last time, if only it were only a nightmare. Joey had been the first to hear the muffled gunshots as he arrived with the police just a bit too late to the crime scene. Both he and the cops at the Hollywood police station had been tipped off by the murderous teenager's mother only moments earlier. Though she was quite hysterical, she made it plain that her adopted psychotic monster of a child was about to blow Dwayne into the next life. The heavy door of the residential building, 3 pages, because I can't stop there. The heavy door of the residential building their company recently closed on had been locked. The large house in Hollywood had been purchased by Stratton Records to house its newly signed artists and curtail the escalating costs of off-site rehearsal and office space. Joey and the police sergeant were the first to arrive. Of course, the sergeant and his quickly gathering army of backup tried to keep him calm and away from the scene. But Joey broke away, wrapped his head and arms in his leather jacket, and threw himself through a sliding glass door at the side of the building. It was too late. Dwayne, his lover, his life, was dead. I'll stop there. Anyway, you get the point. So Joey is now a CEO of the company they had started together. And so he's in San Francisco to kill himself. He encounters an epiphany. So this misspelling is deliberate because imagine if you took an epiphany, something that you have, a certain realization that you have, and you put flesh on it and turned it into a person. So these epiphany are basically messengers, supernatural messengers, but he has no memory of them after they leave. So much happens in these books. I just want you to understand that this is a great series. This is the second book, The Epiphany. The third book, this one came out just this year. Where's that? Boy, I have a hard time with this. There you go. It's such a beautiful cover. But I sit in front of my window so you can hardly see things. There it is. Anyway, Muse. Muse is the story of Carson Elliott, who meets this guy under the streets of San Francisco. So he's back in San Francisco. There's no mention of Carson in the other books because he's a new character, but he knew the characters from the last book. So anyway, he's a writer. He writes generally novels, crime mystery novels. And he meets this guy who's got this beautiful voice under the subway system in San Francisco. And so let's make this part one, and then I'm going to come back because I really do need to get it together a little bit better.